we got Dawson. And we are live. I was just praising Dawson here before we got started because his job's really tough. He's doing things solo. So first of all, let's introduce Dawson in the control room. Doing a great job. You do have the red light. I thought you didn't have the red light on. That's amazing. Gotcha. By the way, I'm Jake Duesenberg, President of Action for Liberty. Who doesn't introduce himself first? Like, everything's out the window here on this podcast. This is unbelievable. It's like we've never done this before, Jesse. Speaking of other characters on the show, MAGA Jesse. Show people your new haircut.
I no longer got the Trump do. It's a little bit shorter, but it's about time to clean up and get ready for 2024.
Does that mean that you're like going DeSantis 2024?
No.
Hey, take that hair or that hat off again, real quick. It's almost, what is that crest that you have, like that thing that comes in the middle? There's a name for that.
Yeah, there is a name. I don't know.
I don't even know. Widow's Peak. There you go.
Sure.
I didn't even know you had that.
Yep, I got one.
There you go. His hair is so long before. Also joining us is Bridget. How you doing, Bridget?
I'm doing great.
All right.
And Jesse, I join you with a widow peak. It's okay.
Yep, that's right.
Do you really?
I would think so. If I was like a boy and I had it back, I think I would have it too.
Well, you could choose your gender. So.
Well, true.
Yeah.
This is true, but I don't choose to be a boy.
Okay, good. All right. This is our show where we expose corrupt politicians and lying corporate media, and we're going to really focus on that first part, the corrupt politicians. Why did Democrats win big last week? It's Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. It's 1 week after my 40th birthday, which was the worst birthday of my life because we saw what was supposed to be a red tsunami end up being a minor blue wave. And, I didn't turn on the TV because I wanted to, like, hang out with family, on my birthday, my 40th birthday. And then, of course, I got to see the results because, my heart and soul is with a lot of these people like Tom DePel or Mark Bashofsky or Mortensen, Nathan Wiesberg, who ended up winning, which is great.
Yep.
So I turned on the TV, and I'm like, oh, this is not good. I think I saw Fetterman had already won. We saw DeSantis. That was
right.
nice, right?
Yep, that was good to see.
Was it for you?
Yeah, I'm not going to trash talk DeSantis until the time comes, and we got plenty of mud to throw. So we'll see what happens. I think he knows better.
All right, so then we didn't learn that night, but we learned, I think, some point Wednesday that the entire Minnesota government is going to be run by Democrats. And that's not the Democrats of the past. That's not the Kennedy Democrats, not the Blue Dog Democrats. That's the modern Democrat Party, which is basically Metro Democrats who not only love California clean energy standards, a.k.a. hate fossil fuels, and
AKA $8 a gallon gas. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. They not only like that, they also like what's going on in Europe, which basically have no gas, or as they call over there, petrol.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know how this winter's going to go. We'll probably report about that a lot.
Yep.
So that's who now is in full control of the Minnesota government. When I say full control, they have a 1-seat majority in the Senate, so it's not like you're going to get this blanket left-wing policies, certainly when things like guns and abortion come into play. I think they're going to be somewhat moderated because they're going to be worried about that 1-seat majority.
Mm-hmm.
But they've got the damn majority. And so we did a podcast last Wednesday. We wanted to recap it. We did it with Eric Mortensen, who unfortunately lost as well. Although I will say this. Mortensen was one of the biggest losers when redistricting happened. So for those that are uninitiated how the political landscape works every 10 years, you have a census. That's 2000, 2010, 2020. After that census, the next election cycle, so 2002, 2012, 2022, they have to redo the maps, the legislative maps. And it's very political, right? It ends up being in the court's hands every time in Minnesota because there's divided legislature. So the maps were redrawn, and Eric Mortensen ends up getting a more Democrat district, more Democrat precincts. So we always knew his road to success was a lot harder. He really needed a red wave. A lot of these other seats, and we'll be talking about Tom DePel, were very toss-up oriented, right? They're much better districts. And cases like Nathan Wiesenberg, they were really solid districts. We really liked Wendy Phillips, who ended up getting redistricted. She was the biggest loser, I think, of redistricting. Came from like a solidly red district to a basically lean blue district.
Yep. So
there are a lot of candidates that you guys were probably following that ended up being losers when it came to redistricting. So it's almost like the cake was baked back in February after they had already announced that they were running for something, which stinks.
Mm-hmm.
No fault to their own. It's just how the maps ended up getting reoriented. And I'm not gonna like stand here and tell you that it's like some massive conspiracy against pro-liberty candidates. It just ended up in the court's hands. As best I could tell, they didn't really have any malicious intent here. Because
there wasn't too big of a contentious judgment in that case, and it's a tough thing to know of how exactly to draw the lines, and you have to make sure that each district is properly represented with the same amount of people roughly, and it's a difficult job, and it can be maneuvered and have all kinds of problems happen, but I don't think that there was anyone that was proving that there was malfeasance in the map that was drawn up.
Right. And just some proof of that. The Senate minority leader for the Democrats, Melissa Lopez Franzen, she was paired up with Ron Latz, far left Democrat man. So of course the Democrats picked the old white male instead of the minority woman to represent the district. So she actually didn't run. That's hilarious. They're all for the minority and the woman.
Right, and especially because she held leadership within the Senate Democrats, and they preferred Ron Latz over their leader.
Although maybe they went to Melissa Lopez Franzen and said, Melissa, we know you were drinking that White Claw in Julie Blaha's car, so we got the goods on you. You better drop out. That's probably what happened, right?
Yeah, I'm sure that there was. I'm sure that's what went on.
If you don't know that story, Alpha News documented Julie Blaha and Melissa Lopez Franzen. They, I think, turned over a vehicle on the highway, and there's White Claw, an open container White Claw found in the car. Last I checked, that's illegal in the state of Minnesota, but apparently when you're a statewide DFL elected official and the minority leader, you don't have anything bad happen to you.
Yep.
I'm sure they would give you the same justice.
Oh, yeah,
they?
I'm sure me and everybody else watching this right now, I'm sure they would treat us all the exact same. Not.
They'd probably do that to Bridget. They'd be like, oh, well, listen, we all make mistakes. Have you ever got a speeding ticket before, Bridget?
A couple.
Have you really?
Yeah.
I'm a little shocked by that. I would think they'd let you off, Bridget.
I usually get let off. The very first time I got a speeding ticket was with my mom, and I blame her. Because usually I can play a ditz or something like that, or Clueless.
All right. I forgot to mention, if you want to opine on the things we're talking about, please in the comment section, right in there. We're on 3 streaming platforms. Also tell us where you're watching this from. We'd love to know. So what happened? Why did Democrats win big? I mean, they can turn over a car with open container of White Claw in there and still end up winning in elections. Well, the narrative starts for us, so the story begins with the start of the election cycle, which is the precinct caucuses. I'm trying to remember. Was that February 1st? It sounds like it was February 1st. Okay.
Yep.
So long ago now. That's when the election season starts, February 1st. Now, if you've been following Action for Liberty for a long time, you know we were pushing people to get involved in the caucus. Now, the majority of our people, being grassroots conservatives, thought the Republican Party was the right way to go. Some actually thought the Democrats were. We had somebody here at our headquarters says she agreed with us on stopping vaccine mandates, and she's a Democrat from St. Paul, and she thought about challenging one of the Democrat legislators. I was like, all right, good for you, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we weren't necessarily saying you got to go one party or the other. We want to train people to get involved in electoral politics or get involved in the system of the election. And that's kind of where we have to leave it off because we're not an election group. I want people to understand Action for Liberty is an issue-based group. We're going to fight anyone that goes after our liberties. The Republican Party, the Senate Victory Fund, the House Republican Campaign Committee, as we're going to talk about today, those are your election groups. Those are the people that actually have a monopoly when it comes to electioneering and working with candidates. They literally have a monopoly. No one else can do what they can do. No one can work directly with these candidates like they can. It's amazing.
Yep.
And there's a reason it's a monopoly. It's because they're the ones that write the law. They want that monopoly. This came into play a couple years ago when Jeremy Munson and Steve Drazkowski and a couple others split off from the House Republican Campaign Committee. They were led by this crony, Kurt Doubt, who used to be the minority leader. And they wanted to have some kind of political entity that could help out candidates. And they found out you can't do it. It's literally a monopoly. Only one party per chamber.
Yep.
So they have a monopoly on that. So let's so that's the beginning. And a lot of you guys probably went to your caucus, right? We had thousands. We were tracking, God, I can't remember the number, 5,000, something like that. It was a lot of people went to their caucus for the first time. A lot of them for the first time ever. In fact, at the state Republican convention in May, I think it was 55% had never been to a convention before, which is amazing. Okay, and you'd have to attribute a lot of that to what we did building up this effort, which we never got a thank you from David Hann. You'd think the people bringing this many people into the party would thank us for that, but no thank you here. They only saw us as a threat, and they saw a lot of you as a threat too. A lot of you know what I'm talking about, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, thank God you had some good local Republican leaders, because those people do exist, and they welcomed you, and they're smart because they see the same old people every election cycle come here, and we accomplish nothing new. And so some good Republican leaders are like, welcome here, we want you, right? Now, I can think of one really good leader that I found. She wasn't with the party before this election cycle, but Kathy Smith over in Senate District 33, awesome person, really cool. Like big open arms. We need people. We need to build this Republican ticket. We need to build the Republican ranks.
Yep. Instead of casting people away, instead of trying to shame these people, instead of trying to declare everyone Action for Liberty is going in there to try and destroy the state convention and whatnot. They put out all kinds of rumors and everything. And the MNGOP, the reason they had so much trouble is because they were attacking Republicans. Tough to unite us when you attack us.
Yeah, and they were doing this. We documented what happened in Morrison County, like just outright cheating, probably broke laws with what they did. Lots of cheating around the state, lots of shenanigans, Senate District 1. I've heard a lot from Otter Tail County. Lots of things really bad, okay? But for the most part, the worst things that happened was just a resistance, basically sneering at people for wanting to get involved. And that's just a ridiculous thing, because you haven't won a statewide election in 16 years. You should be welcoming new people, especially this. I don't know if we have a name for this movement. We call it just the New Grassroots Conservative Movement, but it's basically like a anti-COVID tyranny, pro-health freedom movement. And these are the people that should have been welcomed into the party, and they really weren't, especially the candidates, Pretty much every candidate I think we were tracking had some level of resistance, but few had it as bad as Tom DePel. And so we wrote an article, I think it was last Thursday, and we briefly talked about this on the program last week. Tom DePel, a really, really good guy. Do me a favor, Dawson. I didn't have this article ready to – oh, no, I did. Pick up the Juergens article. Scroll down here. I want to show people a picture of Tom DePel. Look at that family. Now, that is a good-looking candidate, good-looking family, right? 6 children, successful business owner, very presentable, very well-spoken, good God-fearing man, but he's a constitutional conservative. How dare he? He actually says he's going to do what he says he's going to do at the Capitol. He's not afraid to say he's pro-life. But this is a great candidate, and this is my Senate district, which is Lake Alamo, where I live, all the way down to Hastings. And Hastings, I have a small truck in Hastings. That's God's country. Those good people down in Hastings. And I've lived in Hastings, too, before. I love Hastings. This is a district that should just be Republican. Either if you're in Lake Alamo and you're sick of taxes and sick of the crime wave that the cities is bringing, or you're in Hastings and you're so sick of tyrannical government and them coming after our guns, it's a great district. And Tom is a great fit for that district, okay? And most people understood this by post-primary. But Tom DePel, right from the get-go, he didn't have an easy path. He had the convention, which was in April. Now, they actually tried, the convention started like 8 or 9 a.m. and went all the way till 4 p.m. until they even had the endorsements.
Yep.
So that's like...
Trying to get people out of there, wait people out. Yep,
right,
get the newbies out.
But regardless, Tom prevailed very well. I'm not saying there was a lot of shenanigans at the endorsing convention. Tom was able to perform. I think he won by a 50-point margin over Representative Tony Jurgens, who we'll now refer to as Rhino Tony Jurgens. So DePel succeeds and ends up preparing for his, general election against whoever the Democrats pick. I don't even know if they had the person picked yet. Eventually, they picked Judy Seeberger. And right before the filing deadline for the primary, so we're talking about basically June 1st, the Senate Victory Fund, which is, as I mentioned before, the monopoly of the party that can actually work with candidates, goes to Tom DePel and tries to get the guy to drop out. And they tell him some lie, and hopefully we could have Tom on the show. We could talk about this. They tell him some lie and tell him to drop out of the race. And Tom's like, I'm not going to drop out of the race. So Tom doesn't listen to these guys. So what do? They actually recruit Tony Jurgens to run against Tom DePel in the August 9th primary. Pull up that picture of
unendorsed. They picked the unendorsed liberal opponent to try to primary Tom DePel. It's, a shame. And that's the establishment, the Senate Victory Fund. Those are the people that get to run it on the inside.
Yeah, and I'm going to point later to David Hand, crony David Hand, the chair of the GOP, accusing Action for Liberty is working against Republicans. And meanwhile, here are these Republicans literally picking against the endorsement. So if you're a grassroots activist and you give up your Saturday to go endorse Tom DePel, which people did by a 50-point margin over Tony Jurgens, these crony establishment Republicans then said, I don't care what you had to say, we're gonna endorse and help out Tony Jurgens. Pick up show that picture of Karin Housley. So this is who recruited Jurgens, or at least probably one of the people that recruited Jurgens, and then eventually made a very public endorsement in the final week of the primary. So here's State Senator Karin Housley, and if you follow her voting records, about as liberal as they come in the Republican caucus, endorsing the unendorsed Tony Jurgens against the grassroots. Half of her district is she used to represent is part of the new Senate District 41. All right, so anyhow, putting up roadblocks, trying to get Tom to leave the race, trying to endorse his opponent. Then into July, the Republican Party of Minnesota, under the leadership of crony David Hand, cuts off data access. Pull up that article real quick. We reported about this back in July. It's the one that says MNGOP. Let me just see here. MNGOP cuts off data. Or no, it's titled Hand Harms Endorsed Candidates. I might have that wrong. Line item 10. There you go. All right, so what they did is they actually went to all these grassroots conservative candidates and they cut off their data access. So these candidates were unable to contact voters, Republican voters in particular at this time frame, using a door knocking or phone calling app. Scroll down a little bit. And on this list, there's a bunch of people. Bill Liskey, for instance, Bill Liskey actually won. Good. Bill Liskey's a health freedom candidate. This actually happened to Jeremy Munson in 2020. we actually knew, or was that 2018? 2020, I think it was. So they did this before. There's some precedent for it.
Yep.
But who else was on this list? None other than Tom DePel. Mm-hmm. They cut off Tom DePel's access. All right.
The most pivotal election seat, right, for the Senate.
Right. Now, in this case, if you read more in this article, there's a former minority leader, Kurt Dowd, at the mass filing of candidates for the House, and the person that's circled there is Mark Bashofsky's primary opponent. The HRCC, which is an affiliate of the Republican Party, was actively working to help Mark Bashofsky's opponent, and Mark Bashofsky is the one with the GOP endorsement. So once again, who's attacking Republicans, right? The Republicans are the ones that got endorsed. Okay, so anyhow, working against Republicans, I think that's pretty obvious here. They actually tried cutting off data access to these guys. It's unbelievable. The Senate Victory Fund actually was using their own staffers. If you go back to the article, which article is the Jurgens article, Dawson? I'm really putting Dawson to work here today, jumping around. And that's the video. We played that last week. You can go to this article on actionforliberty.com and you can watch him actually endorse the Democrat. But go ahead and scroll. I want to say it's up. Scroll up real quick. Yeah, there's a image of Senate staffers. So these are people that work for the Senate Victory Fund, actually actively campaigning for Tony Jurgens. Now, I want to note this is pre-primary, okay? So after Tom DePel whoops Tony Jurgens by 20-point margin in the primary, because Republicans in the district had some sense that Tony Jurgens is nothing but a rhino, basically a Democrat in disguise. They picked Tom DePel by a 20-point margin. Most Republican establishment got on board with Tom DePel. There's certainly mailers and stuff that were sent out on behalf. I got them because I'm in the district. But Tony Jurgens, Rhino Tony Jurgens, didn't like that. And so what does he do? He starts actively campaigning for Judy Seeberger, the Democrat. Go back to the article real quick. You can see this picture. I think looks like at a football game just above that. Go right there. Yep. And that's posted by the Hastings Progressives. I think this is a Facebook post. So there's Tony Jurgens in the middle, and to his right, your left, is Judy Seeberger, the Democrat. So they were seen actively campaigning together. Scroll down to the bottom where they actually, right there, the Democrats in Cottage Grove, they got a Cottage Grove Progressives and a Hastings Progressives. They're so well organized over there. They're cheering when Tony Jurgens publicly endorses Judy Seeberger. Now, this race came down to 321 votes, allegedly.
Right. Yep. And we know that they were moving these ballots from a polling location to another polling location in DePel's race. So there's reasons to be asking questions.
So if we just take these results as they are, we don't know. Okay. I'm not alleging fraud here. Okay. YouTube, I'm not alleging fraud. But here's the deal. Let's validate these things. Okay. But if we take these numbers as it exists, 321 votes, Tony Jurgens flipped at least 161 votes. Him putting his influence, him actively campaigning for Democrat Judy Seeberger, flipped 161 votes. One way we can show this is the House seats, both the A and B side, went Republican, right? And anyone that wants to make this a Tom DePel thing, I mean, he ran a great campaign. He put $100K of his own money into it. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, Tammy Tice, Roger Chamberlain, these are Republican incumbents that didn't win. So Tom DePel had a closer margin than those guys. It's not a Tom DePel thing. Tom DePel was a hell of a good candidate, right?
Yep.
So what was the factor? Well, I think everyone understands the factor here, other than the uphill battle and the fact that he had to blow $50K of campaign funds just to fend off Tony Jurgens' primary. Then Jurgens sinks the damn race by saying, I want Judy Seeberger, and you would assume that a sitting rep has at least influence over 161 votes, because it just takes 161 people to flip their vote, and the election goes Democrat. Now, why is this important to you if you're watching Minnesota? Because Democrats won the Senate by one vote, or by one seat.
Yep.
So if Tom DePel beats Judy Seeberger, the Senate stays Republican. And so all of a sudden all this talk about gun control and abortion and all this stuff goes away. Well, it doesn't really go away. There's enough rhinos in there that probably would have thrown it, but
yeah,
it stays Republican. The dynamics of Minnesota's politics completely change if Tony Jurgens, Mr. Rhino in Chief, doesn't do what he does and endorses a Democrat. Now, once again, and I'm going to read this in a second, corrupt chairman David Hand accuses Action for Liberty of attacking Republicans. Like, there's this, thing. I'm tough on Republicans for good reasons, because of how they vote and what they do against your liberty. And I will always call out weak-kneed Republicans. But let's make no mistake about who the real enemy is out there, right? The real enemy is this far left-wing Democrat Party. They're basically socialists. This is the enemy. The reason we go after Republicans anytime is because they're just aiding and abetting the real enemy. They're not doing something to resist this left-wing agenda that's ruining our country. And it really is ruining our country. If you don't believe that, just look at downtown Minneapolis and go to the gas pump. So, yes, we're tough on those Republicans, but there's this thing about politics in general where it gets to after the primary and you kind of bite your tongue and shut up a little bit because you don't want Democrats to win. I have never voted for a Democrat my whole life. I haven't always voted for every Republican, right? I've abstained in some elections because it just was so terrible, the options. But I've never voted for a Democrat. I've been a Republican since, probably 1999 or 98, whenever I first got involved in politics. Like, it's a ridiculous statement to make. And our whole board is Republican or conservatives, right? They're all Republicans, but they're certainly conservatives. And Jesse, I'm sure you have always, in your short time voting, has always voted Republican. And Bridget, I'm guessing the same as well, right? Like, who here is pro-Democrat? None of the people in this room, none of the people at Action for Liberty headquarters are pro-Democrat. But Tony Jurgens is. Tony Jurgens is going to take that beef he has with Tom DePel, a constitutional conservative, and he's going to sink the whole Minnesota government.
Yep,
so
he's responsible for the loss when it comes down to it being that narrow. Most of these people, like you said, when you lose an election, even if you're not happy with it, you shut up. You be quiet because it looks bad on you. It looks like and I don't think Tony Jurgens understood how pivotal this race was going to be and that it was going to decide the fate of the Minnesota Senate. But we're at the position where we're at. That guy's a Democrat now, and Jurgens can't be trusted with anything ever again. He is the reason we have a Democratic Senate.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know. I don't know the guy at all, right? So I'm not even sure we've ever had a conversation. Of course, that conversation would be very lively, and we'd be happy to bring you on the show anytime you want, Tony Jurgens.
Sure.
Feel free to come in. We'll talk. But one would look at his voting record and say, yeah, he probably has more in common with Judy Seeberger because he's basically votes like a Democrat. So maybe he's always been a Democrat, and we've always been right when we say these guys are rhinos. They're Republicans in name only because Hastings and the sliver of Cottage Grove that I used to represent as a House member was more Republican. And so he's basically just doing it for electoral reasons, but he's not really a Republican.
We have a question from Brad Ganser.
No, I don't want to hear from Brad Ganser.
No, it's an interesting question.
Okay, well, all right.
Well, it says, is the Senate Victory Fund as corrupt as the HRCC and the Jobs Coalition?
Ooh, Brad, that's a good question. This election cycle seemed to be because literally they lied to Tom DePel and told him to get out of the race. They actually told him a lie, which I almost think would be illegal. Is that an illegal activity? We should look that up. Because you can't tell someone to drop out of a race, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, I may be revealing a crime. There is something that we've looked up where you can't tell someone to leave the race. It's like trying to. God, I'm trying to remember this. I know we looked this up even this year. Anyhow, so the fact that they were willing to go that length, especially to the endorsed candidate, the Republican endorsed candidate, it's an absolutely ridiculous thing. So, yeah, in many ways, you could kind of make that statement, but I don't know. Jobs Coalition and Kurt Dowd, those guys are really
loaded.
Yeah, they were crummy.
Right. And loaded with money. They spent a lot on Republicans, on the conservatives, so.
Yeah, we documented that. It was about $359,000 of Republican established money against endorsed. I think they were all endorsed candidates. Mostly endorsed candidates. Mm-hmm. Conservative candidates for sure. Okay. Okay, so this is just Tony Jurgens, and I'm glad we brought up the HRCC because, well, how did Tony Jurgens get to this point, right? Like, this guy's been a legislator for, 2 or 3 election cycles? Like, how's this guy get to the point where he's got this kind of influence to affect the whole control of the Minnesota government? Because he's gotten cover from these cronies that were leading the House Republicans. Because, if you follow a primary, everybody's a conservative.
And that's what everybody's saying.
There's no rhinos, no left-wing Republicans. Obviously there are, especially when you look at their voting record, but they're all conservative. They just throw out the term conservative. Jurgens was not conservative. He's like a lifetime 30% on our scorecard.
Yeah.
Easiest scorecard in the world. All you have to do is vote against bigger government and pro-liberty, and you'll pass. And he can't even do that. He's 30%. He's like as bad as the Democrats. And so he gets cover. He keeps getting cover from, the House Republicans who have never, and there's so many big reasons why Republicans got beat here. I would say if I had to put the number one reason, what that is, it's that the Republican brand sucked because essentially voters had to go to the ballot box and they had to know that crime is out of control. They had to know that inflation's out of control. They had to see these big things and say, I am so mad at Democrats and Joe Biden. but I don't think the Republicans are a better alternative. That's what had to happen. And so that means they have a huge branding problem. And of course they got a branding problem, because when are we getting bold conservative reforms and policies?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the one guy in the nation, I could think of one guy in the nation right now, a Republican, who's had bold policies, bold proposals, and taken it to the left wing. And who's that?
Donald
you can admit
Trump.
it. You can admit it. No, the one that's in office right now.
I'm not sure who are you going
You
for.
can admit it. Come on, Jesse.
What's that?
Ron is his first name.
Oh,
Go ahead, finish the sentence.
DeSanctimonious?
Wow.
I mean, Ron DeSantis clearly is showing bold proposals. He did COVID way different than these other governors. And Ron DeSantis just had this massive victory, a 20-point margin in Florida. People are like, oh, my God, the Republicans are in total control of Florida right now.
It was impressive.
It wasn't. Oh, look at that. We got a big admission from Jesse today.
I'll admit that.
So that's what I've always argued. I've argued this. I mean, you can go back to our synopsis of the 2018 election. Republicans have a branding problem. If you ever get in the majority, you should do something with it. But they always play the left. Or even if you're in the minority, you should propose things like common sense things like, hey, there's a surplus. Give it all back. We never had a proposal from Republicans when they had the House or Senate to give back the entire surplus. You know, it came down to Eric Mortensen was the only legislator who didn't spend a dime of your surplus money. Every other legislator had spent your surplus. How can the Republicans not all agree when you're overtaxed, you get the money back?
Yeah.
But they can't even agree on that. So the voter is like, I don't know. I mean, Democrats are bad, but the Republicans really aren't any different, and I kind of care about abortion. Right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any other way to look at it. Now, these establishment hacks will go, we don't have good candidates. These are extremists, like these conservatives, you know. We got bad candidates. Yeah, that's clear not it, because no one said Roger Chamberlain was one of these conservative candidates. No one said Tammy Tice was, or John Heinrich lost, Greg Bowe lost, just to name a few. These are people that were incumbents. These weren't like the conservative grassroots people. Mm-hmm. So that's clearly not it. And I would argue that Tom DePel is a more attractive candidate than the vast majority of the candidates the Republican Party had going forward.
Yep.
And if you look in his district, Tom DePel was right in line with the other votes. I think maybe Jim Schultz won that district, but in terms of the statewide candidates, he was right in line with those people, which is a big telling thing. And I want to show this video. So Scott Jensen did this recap of the election. I think this was recorded last week, but Alpha News released it this morning. And I thought it was a very interesting admission. Now, we were real critical of Scott Jensen until basically around the endorsement time. We saw the writing on the wall. This is the guy to go against Tim Walz. And let's just be honest, there wasn't anything worse than Tim Walz. I'm not usually just a rah, go red, but when you got a guy who literally shut down our state economy and locked you in your homes, I don't know what we have to argue here. That guy needs to go. So, I wasn't going to trash talk Jensen. We offered our opinion, certainly on some campaign stuff, but it is what it is. Now, listen to Jensen's admission about what the endorsement meant, because a lot of you guys probably were part of the endorsement process. So go ahead and play that video. I think it's at minute 17, Dawson.
I think the biggest obstacle for me in winning the November 8th election to be governor was probably the process leading up to the endorsement in May of 2022 in Rochester. It's literally like running two different campaigns. To get the endorsement, you're speaking to an audience of Republicans, many of whom reside pretty close to the goal line, if you think of it as a football field. When you run for governor from May to November, you're now speaking to that same audience, but you're also expanding the audience to include the entire right side of the football field, as well as that group of people who live between the 40 and 50 yard line on the left side of the midline stripe. And so many of the positions you will take in that first election to get the endorsement don't sit well during that second election to win in a general election. And I think that was the biggest obstacle. We had an aggressive and volatile endorsement contest with 7 different candidates. And it was no holds barred. And there were deceptions and half-truths that played into that election that required firm responses, sometimes polarizing responses.
All right. I mean, I listen to that and I go, you're just basically saying what we've been saying for a long time is you guys don't really believe these issues. Like, if you believe the issues, you run on the damn issues, right? Mm-hmm. It's just about how you message it. And so what we ended up with Scott Jensen, and I'd put a lot of blame on corrupt chair David Hand on this one, is they completely fumbled on abortion to the point where I think did we say this on the show? Maybe it wasn't on the show. It was somewhere. We said it on the show last week. Is Scott Jensen even pro-life? Like, we don't know.
Right.
Like, at this point, he had got watered down so much that he had no position on it. And why would voters, like, what is the Republican brand? Well, they're not pro-life, I guess. They're something in the middle. Well, we're going to vote for a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what kind of mission?
Because he had a different position than he had in the primary, that he had in the general, and then all of the media smears, all of the commercials that were going after him saying that he was an extremist on abortion, nobody could pinpoint, what does this guy actually believe? So,
and we said, you come out and say, I believe that the life begins at conception, and that the Democrats, my opponent Tim Walz, think she can kill a 7-pound, 8.5-month-old baby. That's an extreme position. And there is a poll, and we read this on the show, that suggests that is true. People would see that as a more extreme position. But no, instead they ran scared on that issue. Go to the article on abortion talking points, GOP. We published this back, I think this was September 24th. There you go. This was a leaked memo sent to us by many different sources. And this was David Hand, corrupt David Hand, sending a message to all of the candidates, Republican candidates. And you can see guys like Scott Jensen and some rhinos use this language directly. I can't see that screen, so I'm going to read off my TV here. They would actually read this verbatim or use these talking points verbatim. And it's a terrible talking point. How did I get this thing to open?
Right. No, it's like watching the mainstream media when you were watching some of these debates. They were just verbatim saying exactly what David Hahn had told them to say. And, it's like, just watching the corporate media because everybody on there is just saying whatever they're told to say on the script. So. Yeah,
right. And David Hahn says this is poll test. He goes, here's the facts. Abortion up to the moment of birth is a protected constitutional right in Minnesota. So it's like, you basically adopt the whole Democrat talking points. Mm-hmm. And they went as far as to say abortion is not on the ballot, which is an insane statement. So if someone actually thinks abortion's on the ballot, you're telling them you don't know any better. That's a dumb. What genius came up with that talking point, first of all? So now you run away from your pro-life stance and you actually cater to the left. You adopt their talking point. And I can't wait to someday down the road, Republicans are arguing from the Supreme Court, and a clever pro-choice lawyer is going to go, look, even the Republicans admit that it's a constitutionally protected right, right? That's what they're going to say. Good job, David Hand. Congratulations on that one.
Yep.
So they completely fumbled this thing. Once again, trying to moderate the views, not standing for anything, right? Like a Ron DeSantis actually standing for something. We're going to peel back and not stand for anything.
Yeah.
And then essentially we're just going to blame the fact that we had to have our conservative viewpoint out there in the public. That's a ridiculous statement. So, which just shows and makes us all hesitate and go, maybe you really weren't a conservative. Now, I don't want to start beating up with Scott Jensen because I think the problem actually ended up being a little bit bigger than Scott Jensen's problem. It was a brand problem in general. And if we can go back to who was in charge of the Republicans over the last 10 years? Well, the Republicans in the House had the same leader, Kurt Dowd. Lobbyist legislator, by the way, works for Stateside Associates, a lobbyist group from D.C. So this is the guy that's in charge. He's not a lobbyist. He does public relations or government. They always come up with a cute title for it, right?
Yep,
I'm
saying
sure his
everything
job
but
has
the
nothing to
truth.
do with being an elected official, right?
Oh yeah, they're those are two separate things. He doesn't ever let those paths cross. I mean, come on.
Right. So, anyhow, go back to the article. I want to show you who this guy is. And we've talked about this guy enough times. Not this article. Let's go to the one on Kurt Doubt and vaccines. Let's see here. Yeah, that one. Go ahead and click. So this is the guy. The Republicans in the House in Minnesota have had lead them for a decade. He was the Speaker of the House in 2015 through 2018. Lost the House in 2018. They elected him again as minority leader after losing the House, then elected him as leader again in 2020, which is ridiculous. And finally, in 2022, they said, nope, not anymore. But anyhow, we'll get to that in a second. Play this video. This is the guy leading House Republicans in 2021.
Hello, I'm House Minority Leader Kurt Doubt. There have been a lot of challenges over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, but the vaccines give us hope. The available vaccines are safe and effective. They have been authorized by the FDA and were developed following all federal requirements. Across Minnesota, we are working hard to get as many folks vaccinated as quickly as possible. We are making great progress, and we need to keep that momentum going. I urge you to take your shot today. They are readily available. I took the vaccine, and I hope that you will too. Together, we can finally get back to all of the things that we love. Let's get our economy moving again and get back to life as we knew it. Thank you.
You know, Jesse, I remember that day I saw that commercial. It just came up randomly on some site I was browsing. And I go, oh, well, he got his vaccine. I'm going to go out and get mine now.
Oh yeah, I mean, if anybody could convince me to get the vaccine, it's Kurt Doubt. I mean, come on. I mean, we all know that the guy's bought out, paid for by the lobbyists and special interests, and good to see him out of the House leadership now. But, I mean, that video just confirmed everything that we already know, that this guy's a shill and, willing to say whatever and push this vaccine. And, when we see that now Tim Walz wants to mandate the vaccine for children going into school, and we're going to see Democrats nationwide doing that. So we need as much fight and pressure against these Democrats as possible, and Kurt Doubt wasn't bringing it.
Now, the Kurt Doubt apologists, which is probably a room of 5 people these days, probably go, oh, that was before. That was in 2021. No mandates and stuff like that. It's like, that's even more to the point. Mm-hmm. Kurt Doubt's not a medical professional. What the hell are you doing pimping out a vaccine? You have no idea. You have no idea at this point. Mm-hmm. So, and by the way, you got it wrong. That vaccine was not helpful at all. It didn't help get our economy back moving. And likely, YouTube, this is likely. I'm not making a statement here, YouTube. But likely has very adverse effects, reactions. We're going to actually, I asked Dr. Neil Shaw if he wanted to come in and discuss this. And so it looks like we'll do a show here pretty soon with Neil Shaw to go through all these strange things that are happening to our population right now. I want to play. So if you're not convinced on the vaccine, as I know our group is definitely pro-vaccine freedom, whether you get the vaccine or not, it's up to you, right? It's always up to you. But I know our crowd really didn't like the mask mandate. And, of course, Republicans are all on board on that, right? Well, let's listen to the person they select as leader for 10 years on masks. It's the video on the bottom there, Dustin. Do you see it? The video on the bottom of that same article. Should be on there. Right there.
But just like I wear a mask because I don't want to hope that I don't get COVID, I wear this mask to protect me, and I wear this mask to protect you.
Unbelievable.
This is who they picked. Look, those are Democrat talking points. It's not like where your base is at. Mm-hmm. You want to blame the election on the constitutional grassroots conservatives. It's like, you're just Democrats. That's all you. So how's Tony Jurgens get to the point where he can actually impact the full control of Democrat government? Because these kind of people were protecting him. These are the ones providing cover.
Yep.
Eric Morrison's going to start a show we're going to be producing here. I can't wait because it's going to be fascinating. He's going to reveal all the stuff that happens behind the scenes. Yeah. And these guys are just phonies. There's no other way around it. They're just complete phonies. They don't believe in any of this stuff. So they're not used to is somebody actually paying attention, organizing, researching it, taking that information and providing it to you. And that's what our job is. I mean, if the Action for Liberty really does anything, that's what we do. We expose the corrupt political class.
I mean, if Action for Liberty didn't exist, imagine how much Kurt Dowd would have slidden under the radar. You know, it could have been possible that he wouldn't have even been able to, that he would have stayed the leader. You know, if we didn't have all of this pressure on him, so many people in our state would be clueless, and maybe even some of these legislators that are going in wouldn't have known about how bad he really is.
Right. So they threw him out. Luckily, So first of all, when you take these big defeats, and once again, I started this program with, there's really a monopoly on electioneering in terms of working with candidates and stuff, and that's the Republican Party of Minnesota, the Senate Victory Fund, and the HRCC, the House Republican Campaign Committee. So Senate Victory Fund, run really by Jeremy Miller, who was the Senate Majority Leader. I don't know the guy, okay? His voting record's bad. But Jeremy Miller stepped down. That's leadership to a degree, in my opinion, because you clearly failed the mission, right? Or allegedly failed the mission. We still got to see Tom DePal's race. Said District 3, also very close margin.
Yep.
But you failed. So he stepped down. That's the right thing to do, that leaders would recognize where they fell short. So he steps down. Kurt Dowd ran again. He ran again. And by the way, he ran again on like 8:30 on a Friday morning, right? A lot of people don't know this. When elections happen, the leadership quickly holds the elections for leadership positions right away, because they want people, just these new freshmen, which I think the Republican House was 26 new Republicans. It's a lot.
Wow.
They don't want these guys learning more. They want to get them right in and vote, make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So luckily there was some organized faction against Kurt Dowd, and they picked Lisa DeMuth instead. Apparently Dowd took it pretty sorely. I don't know if he's even been seen by the public. He didn't come to the press conference.
Yeah, he
afterwards.
wasn't there in the background.
I've heard tears were streaming down his face. Might have done some late night white clawing, but I just don't know. That's speculative. That's speculative. So anyhow, he's gone, and that's good, right? He really needs to go. This guy has literally ruined the Republican brand, and he's gone after Action for Liberty. But the chief person here at fault, when I look at the whole election cycle, is none other than corrupt chair David Hann, the guy supposedly leading the Republican Party.
Yep.
And, the guy gave a lot of us hope, because the person before, Jennifer Carnan, was crazy. She was a crazy person. And she's apparently running for chair again.
Oh, yeah. Should be entertaining, right?
Yeah. So, anyhow.
Jake, somebody in here says Jake for MNGOP chair.
Who said that?
William Davis.
What are you talking about, Will Davis? Here's why I wouldn't be. I was thinking about this. I was on a run this morning. So first of all, I'm not just this big Republican cheerleader. My job is to promote liberty, right? So if Republicans are working against that, I can't just be quiet about that, right? Because don't think that it stops at Republicans. If all Republicans were good guys, this would be easy. Yes, go Republican Party. We wouldn't even need to exist if these guys were all good. The reason we exist is they're not all good. Somebody's got to watch out for liberty, protect the liberty, no matter what the party is, okay? But yes, I've always voted Republican, and I've even become Republican delegates. I'm just not the big Republican cheerleader. But I was thinking on this, I was thinking about it, because I had a couple people say that to me. And of course, the people that decide are the insiders of insiders, so I'm sure I would have no chance anyhow. But I was thinking about it. I'm like, I could possibly do this job for 2 years. Because at this point, Republicans aren't in control of the Minnesota government. So we're all allied on one major enemy. Like, I don't know how. There's probably going to be some fight that we have to whip Republican votes on for sure. But for the most part, the Democrats are in complete control. Our target's got to be on these vulnerable Democrats to get policy changes. So the job I could probably do for 2 years, maybe. Right?
Mm-hmm.
After that, kind of tough. Because I know what these Republicans do in the majority, and I'm not going to stay silent when I see wrong. So, yes, thanks, Will, but not a chance.
Yeah, the person who should be the chair is someone who is just completely impartial, someone that will allow the primaries, someone that will allow the caucuses to be run fairly without any interference, won't be attacking outside groups like Action for Liberty. It should be someone who's just dedicated on making sure that Republicans win. That should be their entire focus. And, unfortunately, we got David Hann in there right now, but, based on what you said, Jeremy Miller stepped aside. Kurt Dowd gets voted out. The track record's looking like Republicans are saying we need some new leadership because we aren't winning with these people at the top.
That's right. Yeah, and the momentum is suggesting David Hand shouldn't be there. Now,
Yeah.
doesn't mean you go Jennifer Carnahan. Like,
No.
don't go back that route. But
No.
I hope to God somebody steps up to the plate. I know that there's rumblings. I'm not saying something that most people inside the circles don't know.
Yeah.
There are rumblings of people popping up, and I like some of the names, and I am very supportive of some of these people because I think it's a good idea. I think we need, if you have a Republican brand problem, you gotta go a different direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the hope of Carnahan. She brings this energetic, youthful vibe. You just end up finding out it's just kind of fraudulent. It's
Yep.
just it's a show. Like deep down, she's not even really
Scam artist,
Republican.
right.
Yeah, but there are some really good people, honest people that I think could do a really good job and be good communicators. But just look at the record of David Hand. So just think about this. Jeremy Miller steps down, he loses the Senate. Makes sense. Kurt Doubt doesn't step down, but gets thrown out because the House fails to go Republican for 3 election cycles now.
Yep.
David Hand loses the Senate. He loses the House. He flips no congressional districts. He didn't lose any congressional districts. That's probably his good statement. I didn't lose any.
Yeah.
So flips no congressional districts, no, not CD 2 or 3. He loses all statewide election races, and he gets out fundraised by the Democrats 20-1, at least 20-1. It's probably going to be much worse than that. He was a 20-1 dog.
Mm-hmm.
That's his resume. Oh, but elect me.
Yeah.
That's insanity.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love it when I go to these like Republican conventions and you hear someone go, "Oh, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results." That's what you're about to do.
Yep.
Don't even think about electing this crony guy. Now, he is a crony thick and through. He's got terrible results, but this is the guy that cut off data access for candidates. His
Yep.
endorsed candidates. This is the guy that refused to intervene in clear fraudulent stuff. Did you know that Nathan Wiesenberg, God bless Wiesenberg, can't wait for that guy to be up at the Capitol. He ends up winning the primary. There was no endorsed candidate in that district. They didn't intervene to get an endorsed candidate. They let the party basically was so corrupt that they didn't even have an endorsed. They didn't even count a ballot in that endorsing convention.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How is it that they can't even count a ballot? God, it almost was like it was run by Maricopa County officials there.
Oh,
right?
I know, right? It's basically the same exact thing, but on the Republican side of things. And, you know, I was there for the entire endorsing convention of SD10, and I had to be standing outside of the gymnasium watching the entire time. I stood there for, 6-7 hours, however long it went. And I just saw
4 hours, not what,
well, maybe
7
but
to
I
4,
was there
7 to
early.
11,
I don't
yeah.
remember, but I just remember realizing, these people, they hand out all the ballots and then they say, "Oh no, someone's ballot was stolen," and then they're blaming Nathan Wiesenberg and Action for Liberty, and it's like, what are you guys talking about? They just kept pushing it off, and even Rhino Ron, who they got rid of his opponent, they still couldn't even get him endorsed
Yeah.
at that convention because people were saying, "I'm still writing in Chuck," and,
Yeah. Yeah, and couldn't count a ballot. What, we got time concern? What? Oh, yeah, I am. Oh, yeah, I know our conversation, Dawson. Thanks. Fair point. Look at that guy. Dawson, pull up that article again on David Hand cutting off data access. I think it's corrupt Image GOP chair. I think that's what it's called. Cuts off data access. Do we have some comments in the queue there, Bridget?
I was looking at this one on Rumble. Does it matter if the left or right wins? They're on the same team.
Well, yes, it does matter because they're good people that ran on the Republican ticket. Now, the Democrats really are losing big time and having any common sense in their party. They're the party of Fetterman nowadays, right?
right.
So, yes, it does matter. You want to get these really grassroots conservatives elected. Nathan Wiesenberg will be a positive force up at the Capitol. At least that's what I would expect. But if it was just establishment, it just came down to Democrat versus Republican establishment, you might have a point. Yeah, the one that says Image GOP chair. Yep. Scroll down to the bottom. I think I've got this on here. So what they did in Senate District 1. Yeah. Hold on one second. Yeah, okay. So this is, Amanda Hughes will love that I brought this up. This is Han actually making a completely false statement. He accuses Kitson County of not abiding by campaign finance laws. And you can go to Action for Liberty's website. This article was September 24th, I think, if we looked at the top. So they actually tried dissolving one of their own party units up in Kitson County. And he lies on this thing, says that you are out of compliance with the CFB and you must terminate and you must contact the party with any money that's left over in the fund. So they actually go to the campaign finance board. This is Amanda Hughes. Scroll down to the next letter and ask if we're out of compliance. And the campaign finance board says, no, we're not. You're not. He literally lies to try to remove one of the own party units of the Republican Party. Like,
Just because they didn't toe the line of
they
what he
didn't toe
wanted.
the line. They don't want to be run by like some cronies up or down in St. Paul.
Yeah.
Kitson County is like way up north. So that's David Hand. Now, speaking of campaign finance stuff, Hand took some real shots at Action for Liberty here. As some of you know, we get a campaign finance board erroneous complaints against us almost every year, because that's what happens when you're successful and you're doing something in politics. They're going to come after you, and they love using the CFB because, ooh, the big campaign finance board, big violation. So that's what they've done, and we've always beat them, and now, unfortunately, we're still dealing with this stupid thing. But pull up, I had the email from David Hand. This is from the party, and this is back. Let's see. Does it have a date? No, that's the. Oh yeah, that's it. What's the date on that on the top?
July 13th, 2022.
Okay, this is back in July. So they sent out a press release about Action or Campaign Finance Board releases findings on Action for Liberty. Now, mind you, I've never seen the Inman GOP send out an email about a Campaign Finance Board decision.
Yep.
If they do, it's like the Democrats or Walz campaign's in trouble. Here they are attacking the largest conservative grassroots organization in the state of Minnesota. Look at that second paragraph. They take a quote from the former minority leader of the Minnesota House, Kurt Doubt. Quote, this morning, the Minnesota Campaign Finance Board released a probable cause determination regarding a complaint filed against the scam grift organization Action for Liberty. So I guess the party thinks we're a scam grift organization. Last I looked, we're doing exactly what we say we're going to do. You guys are the frauds. You're the ones that say we're conservative. We are pro-life. Oh, by the way, if you ever get the press ask you a question about abortion, just tell them it's a constitutionally protected life or protected right. Who's a scam? Who's a scammer here, right? Like, we're giving it to you straight. Scroll down the bottom here. This is an actual quote from David Hand. Oh, right there. And he writes,
We welcome
the CFB's findings and applaud the House Republican Campaign Committee. So there you go. We applaud Kurt Doubt
Yep.
for speaking out against Action for Liberty. And this is, I'm sure, sent out to the mass list of Republicans in the state of Minnesota. They actually got a lot of people lashing back at them, a lot of heat for this. I mean, it was such a widespread thing, they even sent it to me, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So they write, for speaking out against Action for Liberty, Action for Liberty has adopted as its mission to defeat Republicans and disrupt Minnesota. Okay, so first of all, our mission, so that's factually false. Our adopted mission is to increase or to expand individual freedom and reduce government control. That's our stated mission. So he's lying about that. But he says it's to defeat Republicans, disrupt Inman GOP conventions, parades, and other. I don't even know what the hell he's talking about in parades. That's a ridiculous thing. What do you think I go to parades and try to disrupt parades? What is he saying there? And GOP convention's a joke, but I know at least what he's saying is, oh, they're trying to keep the conventions honest, and so they're rising to points of order. Like, that's a disruption.
Right. You know, I guess
hold on, let me finish this. And other
Yeah.
political activities in an effort to intimidate the public. I should have sent him a cease and desist for that. That's a ridiculous thing. They are not committed to Republican principles and do not believe the primary work of political activity is to create governing majorities. Well, that second part's right. We do not believe that primary work is to have governing majorities. We believe the primary work is Republican principles, the conservative principles that's in your platform. We agree with your platform. We actually really agree with that platform. You guys don't. Now, here's an interesting thing. I don't think anyone's ever done this before, Jesse, but I sent this to Dawson. I'll show you my ballot. You want to see my ballot? Because I always take a screenshot of my ballot. I'm always like, God, if anything was ever to happen and
you want proof.
I want proof of how I voted, right?
Yeah.
Plus, I also like, if I like a candidate, like in this case, Tom DePel, I like to send, hey, here's my vote. So pull up my ballot. I'm going to show you my ballot. Are you able to zoom in at all? Because it's a small little window here. And what I want you to do is zoom in on the left column there. Should be the right column, but it's the left column, we'll call it. So on the top is, over to the left. Okay, right there. So on the left, state offices. Actually, on the top is the federal offices. So I voted Republican. That Tom DePel, Republican. I'm having a tough time reading this. What is that?
Then that's the governor one. The
Oh
second
no,
race.
Mark Veen's the next one. That's
Yep.
our state rep. Then it's governor Scott Jensen. Next is Secretary of State Kim Crockett, Republican. Below that is Attorney General. No, State Auditor Ryan Wilson. You can scroll down. Can you scroll down? Yeah, it's okay. Don't worry about it. State Auditor Ryan Wilson. On the bottom is Jim Schultz for Attorney General. Last I looked, those are all Republican names, aren't they?
Yep,
Jesse?
exactly.
So straight Republican ticket. So go back to that email. They're saying that Action for Liberty state admissions defeat Republicans when I'm showing you my ballot is straight Republican. Like, what are you talking about? Right? Like, I'm not Tony Jurgens. I'm not endorsing a Democrat.
Yep.
You guys cover for Tony Jurgens, who literally flipped the entire control of the Minnesota government to Democrats. That is not us. Here's the president of Action for Liberty. Here's my ballot. It's straight Republican. So these guys are full of shit, right? So, to kind of put a button on this, or a bow, what is the term? Put a bow on this.
Yeah.
One of the guys on my team always laughs because I always get those colloquials wrong. So, to just in this discussion, the way I look at it is you've had so much resistance in this election. It turns out all the stuff these guys playing with fire ends up costing them big. And who's to know if these conservative grassroots people will even want to get involved in the process? They don't. They almost like they don't care if they ever show up again to caucus and become part of their conventions. They'll just go on the same old losing record. So
Yep.
at least in the Senate, Jeremy Miller said we need new leadership. In the House, they decided for Kurt Dowd they needed new leadership. Corrupt David Hand, obviously has not got the memo. And so we assume that these delegates will pick someone new because that's what needs to happen here. They need a better brand. Honestly, us from the outside, I guess you could make the argument, as William said, you run for chair and you work from the inside of the party. And there's a lot of our people that are part of the party process and they don't get welcomed with open arms. But in the end of the day, you just need good people. You need good people run the Republican Party. We should be in peace and harmony with these people because their platform aligns very well with ours. The problem is they don't. They're in it for control. The establishment, they will spend money against these guys. They will trash them. And like Tony Jurgens, they'll actually outright endorse a Democrat. So you wonder why Democrats won big? Because that's their opponent. That is their opponent, these guys. And so now we're left with this really big problem. We got full control of Minnesota government by Democrats. And they're going to push things like California standards. They're going to push abortion. They're going to push
Gun
vaccine
control.
mandates. They'll probably push gun control. And I know a lot of you guys are going to think all hope is lost. It's not lost. I want to give you a quick example. And I wrote this in my email last night to our followers. In 2013, we were a really small organization back then, but in 2013, the Democrats came in big for gun control. I think this is following Sandy Hook. So there's this like momentum nationwide. And they came in big. They didn't even know what they wanted. They definitely wanted to ban black rifles or the weapons of war, the AR-15.
Yeah.
But they couldn't even agree on like how many mags are okay. They had two competing bills. One said 7-round mags are outlawed, and the other one says 9 or 10-round mags are outlawed. Long story short, they're trying to make me a felon. They're trying to make guys like Jesse a felon. They're trying to make all these gun-loving Americans felons instantly by banning these things. Because I'm not going to give up my firearm, right? So
Yep.
That's what they were doing in 2013, and they had full control of the government. But they didn't succeed because you showed up. You went to the Capitol. You went to these hearings. You contacted your legislators. You put in the work. You pressured. You turned up the heat on the politicians, and they stopped. And we can stop a lot of this stuff the same way because they want to be elected to the majority again, and they got some vulnerable members, some members that just squeaked by in a close election. And so not all hope is lost. I wish I was sitting here today looking at this Republican majority and Scott Jensen as governor and going, yes, all right, now we got to call out these Republicans who aren't doing what they said they were going to do, right? Because
Yep.
clearly a lot of these guys wouldn't do what they're going to say they're going to do. But instead, we're sitting here with a full Democrat majority, and we're going to have to fight tooth and nail to stop this agenda. But we can be successful at it. What are you going to say, Jesse?
Oh, definitely. No, I was basically going to pair it off of what you were saying there, that, it's the Juergens, it's the David Hans that, they screwed it up for us. So we would obviously rather be in the position with the Republican majority. And it's time that these Republicans hold themselves accountable.
Yeah. All right, what are the comments? Let's get to some of these. I'm sorry, I went on a long rant here, but I really want to get to a lot of these points. I might have missed some things, and then we have to quickly hear your thoughts on Donald Trump's
big announcement
today.
Yeah, we haven't had a MAGA segment for a long time, but someone actually has a question for Jesse in the comments. What do you think about Trump rushing the vaccine to the market under Operation Warp Speed? Can you see how some conservatives would be skeptical of him? For Jesse directly.
Why don't we let's hold off on that comment until we get to his segment. That's
I'll keep
that's
that
a
in
classic
mind.
Stump the Trump, and that one's been brought up before.
Yeah,
but that was a great comment.
Let's see. Oh, Bucky Harris actually said if you go back to the video of Jensen's, when Jensen was talking about, why he thinks we lost, at the 2:35 mark, you can find Liberty Longbeard.
Yep.
So.
We actually did this show prep, and we were looking at that video, and we noticed, and we wanted to get that screen capture.
Yep.
In fact, we should find all videos of Liberty Longbeard and go, who's this fella?
Yep, it's
why
like
are
a
all these
Where's
guys
Waldo
losing?
of politics.
Yeah, why are they all losing? This guy keeps showing up at rallies.
Yeah.
Shelley Tripp also said, today there is some scandal about stolen crypto money that is bad news, and one of the recipients of that is Senator Tina Smith. The surface is just starting to be scratched. So I heard about that, but I didn't realize.
No idea. So it'd be interesting to find out more about that.
Yeah.
What else we got?
Same lady says, are you sure Dowd was a Republican?
No, none of these guys are. That's why you
Right.
call them rhinos. They literally are in Republican districts. In Dowd's case, a really Republican district. They're just running because that's the way the district is. They could be Democrats, easily could be Democrats. It's like there's like three, if I've narrowed it down to three different types. There's the rhinos. So those are people that literally, it's like, right? I don't really have any core beliefs, or my beliefs are left wing, and I'm just a Republican in the district. The second one is all the people who generally are Republican. They have Republican ideals, and they're just too afraid to do anything about it. They follow the same traps that everyone else does. They are always catering to the left-wing media. They're always like, oh, we got to be more Democrat-like. And then you've got the statesmen, the people that actually believe in what they have those beliefs, and they're not afraid to do something about it. That means like forcing roll call votes. Forcing roll call votes. Introducing bills, speaking out when they see something wrong, even if it's a Republican. So those are the statesmen.
Yep.
Anything else, Bridget?
A couple other comments that have you kind of discussed is actually already in the show. But mostly, the one comment is just with the MAGA Jesse, so I think we can move on to that.
Okay, so Jesse, what the hell's Donald Trump going to say tonight?
Dawson, go ahead and pull up that picture of what I sent you of what I think explains what is going to go on tonight with Donald Trump. It's Yep,
I noticed like a visible annoyed cough when you just said that to him. Did you hear that? It was
yeah.
It didn't sound like he really liked his job there.
Yep, there we go.
Oh,
Trump
my
is
God,
always
that's so
17
great.
moves ahead, okay? So Trump is the ultimate chess master. And as a chess player myself, I respect it.
Is
And,
that a Photoshop, or is that a
Oh, no, that's
painting?
of course Photoshop.
No. But is it Photoshop, or is someone like painted that? Like,
It
is
looks
that,
like a painting.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
because
Someone painted it.
we almost need to buy that painting.
Right.
You know Dale, who buys all your clothes these days? We need him to order you that painting, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So
That's
what-
really funny.
Yep. So what is Trump going to say? He's 17 moves ahead. I'm about, 5D chess, 6D chess level, so I can get to a couple of things, but ultimately Trump is going to be the one who makes the decision of what he says tonight. Number one, what I think he is going to say is that the 2022 election was stolen in many cases from some of these Republicans. And the perfect example of that is Arizona, the governor race. I have a great article that we can talk about referring to Maricopa County. But
Yeah,
Donald Trump
did
is-
anyone see? I thought Carrie Lake had this thing, right?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
ridiculous.
And then all of a sudden, 70% of the votes it's stuck at 70% of the votes are counted for days and days and days. And who's in charge of the election? Katie Hobbs, the one who's running against Carrie Lake. There's so many suspicious things going on. But back to what Trump is going to say. He's going to say the 2022 election was stolen. He's also going to say everything. I could be wrong. If he announces tonight, I'm ready to go. Let's make it happen. But that's not my perception of what's going to go on tonight. I think he is going to extremely hint at it, and he's going to point out that no Republican can ever get elected again if we don't fix these election laws, if we don't straighten out the mess between the mail-in ballots within the, we see the ballot harvesting that these absentee ballots also allow for. Donald Trump is going to provide some evidence in that regard. He's probably going to bring Arizona up as a perfect example of what's going on. So Trump is going to point out how fraudulent everything is and still is, and it's going to be a major announcement. We'll see exactly what else he has in store, and I'm sure that there's plenty of more that he's keeping quiet. If he announces, I'm ready for it, he's going to hint at it. He's not going to say he's out of the race, that's for sure, because he obviously doesn't seem to want to pass the torch to DeSantis. If he wanted to pass the torch to DeSantis, it would be pretty simple, and he probably wouldn't be going after him on Truth Social. And I think that Trump obviously is thinking he might have to gear up for a primary against DeSantis, and we might see some real divisions in the conservative base if that were to happen, and maybe it wouldn't be a good move. Trump is in a more difficult position following these election results. It wasn't the red wave that we were expecting, and he's going to attribute that to the election fraud. So we'll see exactly how he is going to go about it. I think he is going to make a soft announcement tonight for president. He's going to let people know that's
Donald
his
Trump's
intention.
MO, soft announcements.
Yep. But I think he's going to, basically tell people he's probably going to be running.
That's
but we need
not Donald Trump. Oh, I'm probably going to be running. What are you talking about?
I don't know. It's really hard to tell him. He's playing 17D chess. I can't keep up.
All right, Operation Warp Speed. I know you can respond to this.
So, we've talked about this before, and obviously I'm someone who never got the vaccine. I'm not someone who ever got any of the boosters or anything like that. I didn't want to. And Donald Trump always gave us that choice. Operation Warp Speed, when Donald Trump talks about it, he says that the FDA was planning on not releasing a vaccine for years and years and years. He said that the estimated timeline was between 5 and 12 years. So if we were going to, have a vaccine out there that doesn't do anything anyway, it probably was going to be the same exact thing later on. I don't mind that Trump was actually trying to get this thing over with. He doesn't know exactly everything about vaccines, and he actually has enough vaccine skepticism if you go back and watch all of the earlier clips of what he thinks on these things. I know that he's pretty skeptical himself. He doesn't want the children to necessarily be getting these, and he's skeptical of all that. So as far as that, because he never mandated it and he just tried to end this thing and get us back to normal, I don't have anything against Trump on that.
Yeah, I kind of come down on your side on that. It's like, do you fault somebody for trying to solve the problem, which may lead to some, I guess I don't know the issue well enough because it really depends. Did he give emergency authorization for it?
The FDA did, so he was just
so
the one that was pushing
FDA
them.
Though, yeah, that I'd fault
right,
him
and
on.
also, I mean,
but I'm just saying, like, if mRNA technology worked, it would be monumental. It'd be great.
Yeah,
I remember I used to tell this joke when the vaccines came out and go, these two lab mice looked at me and asked me, "Are you going to get the vaccine?" Or no, I'm sorry, I screwed up my own joke. I asked these two lab mice if they were going to get the vaccine, and they responded with, "We're waiting for the human trial to be over," because that's what it was, right?
Yep.
Like, that's why we still call it experimental vaccine, because we don't know. There's never been a vaccine to the market this quickly. Actually, it's not even a vaccine, right? Mm-hmm. They've even changed the definition of vaccine. It's not a vaccine. It's a shot.
Yep.
That's why they call it the flu shot. You don't actually create immunity to the virus. That was another thing they lied to us about, right?
Yeah, they changed
so
the
I just kind of
definition.
wonder, like, but see, Trump was out of office, so I kind of wonder if Trump was in office, what would he have done?
Right,
But
yeah.
you got to assume he wouldn't have
Right.
at least mandated it.
The rollout was under Biden. It wasn't under
but
Trump.
what about the funding piece of it, too? I know that Congress is in charge of funding, but in the end of the day, he's going to have to sign that bill. So, yeah, to me, it's like, I don't know. I'm not as hard on him on that. I'm more hard on him for putting Anthony Fauci in charge for a year. Like that's a good one to fault him on, right?
No, and obviously nobody likes Fauci, and we saw that he was a complete fraud and scam. And, I think Trump was just stuck in a position there because, if there was a point in the beginning of the pandemic where Fauci was 80% approval, 75% approval ratings, the majority of people were looking to him. If Trump would have fired him, it would have sealed the deal so that he couldn't win. And even though I agree, I would, and Trump isn't going to be shy on releasing the dirt on Fauci. There's no way. Trump is the only one that's been ever, promising to expose the corruption like he did. So, he can't get to everything, but he did just about as much as any one person could do.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of his chess. Somebody mentioned that to me about Fauci. Maybe he brought him into the limelight just to expose him.
Yeah.
Never know.
Yep. Trump does that to people.
Then you really screwed over the American people if you did.
Well,
Fauci's ruined a lot of lives for years and years and years.
Yeah, but
So-
not to the degree he did in 2020.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just don't buy into that. It's always 3D chess.
Yep.
I think
And
you're seeing the decline of Trump, honestly. I think especially after this election. And the media couldn't be more giddy about it, right?
Right, and obviously the polls are starting to show that too. But based on what we just saw in this election, we don't trust the polls. So just because we're seeing DeSantis is starting to climb over Trump, it's like who are they polling?
But you don't
who
trust
are they
the polls
asking?
for the opposite reason now, because they were they were underestimating the Democrat. Like Trafalgar Group has got a big, it looks very, very incorrect. I mean, they had Jensen with a slight lead, and he ended up being, we were shit-talking USA's, KSTP USA survey polls because it didn't seem to be what we were seeing, and they ended up being very accurate to give them justice. I was thinking, this is crazy. One of the big things that ended up happening was older people, which voted in a much larger block, trusted Tim Walz than COVID.
Yep.
So, that's why we're doing media. My generation, I'm 40, down to Jesse and Bridget's generation, we are waking up to alternative media, but the older generations are still trusting the old institutional media.
Yep.
And if you're an older person, an elderly person watching our show, thank God. I'm glad you're watching because, a lot of your generation is not. They're still watching the indoctrination from CNN, MSNBC, the 6 o'clock evening news, and they are not. So why would they believe that Walz was lying? Why would they believe any of this stuff? Someone is questioning if the other day Tim Walz put people in nursing homes. That's a substantial fact that he did that. But why they don't know because the media wouldn't let you know that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyhow, we gotta close up shop here. Move on with our day.
Okay, I did want to talk
good.
about that article real quick, though.
What article?
Dawson, go ahead and pull up the Maricopa article. So this is something
this is
extremely
definitely
interesting with what's going on in Arizona because, I believe that, I had been saying if Kerry Lake doesn't win, it's rigged. And Maricopa election officials launched a PAC in 2021 to stop MAGA candidates. They were going after America First candidates. These are people that run the elections in Maricopa County, the people in charge of all of these machines that went wrong. We're seeing that these people, the people that are supposed to be making sure we have a fair election, are creating political action committees to target candidates.
Whoa. Go back up to that. Is that true? See, I knew this was hilarious in this election. There's literally the guy in charge of Maricopa County, supervisor, chairman, Bill Gates. You just want to talk about how weird the universe is sometimes.
Yeah.
His name's actually Bill Gates. So he's part of this political action committee?
I don't know all of the specific individuals who are associated with it, but these are people within the Maricopa County Elections Division that are creating political action committees targeting, these candidates. And, if we can't even trust the people who are running the elections, the people who are supposed to be doing it fairly, they're supposed to be nonpartisan, just observing and seeing, letting the results come in as they are. We're seeing that those people are corrupted, and we know it. We know it all across the state. That's why George Soros and these other people, Bill Gates, are buying out these people. Mark Zuckerberg is paying into these county commissioners and all of these people who are in charge of the elections, whether it be the auditor, assessor, or clerk, whoever is in charge in each individual county. These people are being bought out. The people that run the elections, just like the secretaries of states, these people are being bought out to go with the Democratic line. And, these people are taking it upon themselves to form a political action committee to prevent Kerry Lake from becoming the governor.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm shocked at the results that they're showing right now. So I'm suspicious, but we don't know. We don't know yet. I hope there's evidence. That's all I'm going to say. I hope there's evidence, but I'm damn suspicious of it. All right, we got to wrap things up. Thank you guys for tuning in this week. I think we're going to start our 2 shows a week, although, of course, next week would be only Tuesday because we're not coming to you live on Thanksgiving. But we're going to be starting a 2-week, and we are going to have some big surprises by the end of the year for the show. So I'm very excited about it. So anyhow, thank you.